Verona is often posed.
Cool it, Sanchez, or you'll get a knuckle supper.
That's your motivation!
My friends. I don't know what I'm doing. We're just gonna dance. It's fine. Hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Hi, buddies! It was super delightful to hang out with everyone last night in the Discord. Yeah, it's a dance stream now. It's great. No, it was wild and super fun to hang out with everyone last night. I loved it. I am exhausted still today, but it's fine. It's all fine. I've gotten so much done today, so it's cool. Also, grip it and rip it. I'm trying to, like, wait to open these up until, like, we start. Because, again, good, delightful sound. Right? It's a good rip. But I also need to start remembering to put them in mugs. Because I got big juice now for all my water needs. Which means I don't get to use my mugs as often. So why not just pour all of my soda into a mug? Say hi to Man Juice, everyone! It's been a minute since he's been around. Man Juice has returned. We have not forgotten that Man Juice exists. I've just done bad. Oh no. Thank you, Emmy, for the clip. We appreciate it. Woo-wee. Mirror layers is the plan for tonight. Favorite character in the Cage Expanded Universe. The KEU, as we call it. No, everybody loves Man Juice. Look at this boy. Look at how cute he is. We love Man Juice. I don't know why I'm holding him like this. I can hold him like a normal mug. This is acceptable. This is an acceptable way to hold him. From my understanding, the mug that Cyril bought for me should be getting shipped soon. Should be here soon. Also, don't mind my hair. It's a fucking disaster day. It's fine. Yeah, the trash bin should be here soon, and I'm very excited about that. What else? There was, okay, so I don't know, Sarah, I don't know if you got any emails about it, but there was an issue with Barnes & Noble not wanting to order your book. I have resolved it. The book should be coming to me at some point soon, which I'm excited about, because I want to read it. That's gonna be great, but that's been resolved. I ran some errands today. You got an email that it was sent? Okay, good. 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 I was having some issues on, not my end, and not even on Throne's end, but kind of on Throne's end, in that Barnes & Noble was just being like, no. But we have resolved it. Okay. So, from my understanding, Throne is still, like, up and coming. I'm gonna talk about my wishlist providers real fast, because they're delightful. Throne is still, like, fairly new from my general understanding. If anybody wants a code to skip the waitlist to join them, let your girl know and I'll send you a special code. But they're really, really cool. They've got a lot of, like, really neat things in place, and there are occasions where vendors won't, like, take their stuff, hey Smiley, but we can, like, work around that, and they'll get in touch with, like, me, and we can either, like, change, like, which vendor we're buying from. Sarah, remind me after stream and I'll send you a code. I got a few of them sitting around. But hi Smiley, welcome friends. But I love them. They're wonderful and fantastic, and, like, they're great. Would highly recommend. But yeah. Trying to think of what I'd have to say. No news. There's no news going on. I have to burp? Yeah, okay. Hey, captions? Hold on a second. I turned them on, but they're not picking anything up, and that's a bit of a problem. 2 seconds. Why Are my captions not working? Hello? Oh no. Please, I need you to work. We're gonna take a second while I try and figure out how to fix my captions because they are not registering that I'm saying anything. And that's a bit of an issue. Because they should. And I need them to be there.
I can't believe you've done this.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Okay, acceptable. Because they want to be as difficult as possible. Is this what I want? Oh, I wonder if it's... Did I not... No, they're still not saying that they're working. Is it a Chrome issue? Chrome, are you, like, registering from the wrong... You are. Okay, that's the issue. How about now? Captions. I fixed it. They're here. They're working. We got it. Okay. I know I forgot to, like, I think I forgot to turn them on the other day, which I'm trying to be better about. But then I think I've set them off, like, a couple of times, and this just means that they haven't been functioning and I haven't noticed, and that's an issue, because we need closed captions to be on and running. But it's fine. We have fixed the problem now. Okay! Good deal! Mirror layers tonight. We have Sunpie has noticed us. Ghost Kisser 2000 has noticed us, which is great. We love that for us. But it is time to see what else this game has to offer. That seems extremely loud. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. Is that still hyper loud? New friends, old friends, friends. Not so, I don't like Glassman. Glassman, not great. Is that too quiet? Is this better? I fear Glassman. Why? Hold on, I'm having some... Everything is, like, freaking out on me right now. My chat's not working. Good. I'm glad that the sound is better. Chat, would you just throw some words up to see if I've got my chat functioning now? Every aspect of technology is just failing on me right now. And this is fine. These are the words. Plethora. We love you too, Sarah. Okay, cool. It's up and functioning now. I could see, in OBS, I could see the chat was moving. However, my actual chat panel was not. Plethora does mean a lot. Okay, we're good. Everything is fine now. I love that I can just, like, fix these issues now. Because had this happened to me, like, a year ago, I would be in tears. Being like, why is nothing working? Why is it? Oh, bad! But it's fine. We can look at our beautiful board. Y'all remember? the gorgeous, lovely pictures we made. We got this is a Gex. We got our scared Mushu. We got our sassy Mushu. We got the now Kith for Ghost Kisser. And we got the very first doodle I did, which I think was supposed to be me, but who knows? Alright. And because I know that some of y'all didn't get to see it, let's log into propaganda. It's true I didn't get the one long arm. New comment? Oh. I don't care about that comment. Can I... Let's go to our profile real fast so we can look at our comments. Here it is! We have 6 likes now, as opposed to I think we had like 3. And, here you go. Here y'all go. This is it. Ghost Kisser loves it. Ghost Kisser loves our picture, basically. And it's very good. And I'm glad that other people also enjoyed my picture. Right? They love it. I even got 2 hearts, not just the traditional one. I got 2 hearts. Yeah. Good times. So we love Ghost Kisser. We are on Enigma 3, I believe. It's the 3rd chapter, 3rd big puzzle, I should say. Previously on Mirror Layers, we solved the terrible flower puzzle. The extremely awful, terrible flower puzzle. Yeah, Brendo's supporting our quests, and I love that for them. If they ever need any sort of, you know, emotional, moral support on any of the fun things that they're doing, they just gotta let us know, and we're there. We're there for them. I guess we could probably, like, catch up on, some of the comments. No, let's wait. Let's wait to read any of the comments for this particular enigma. But it doesn't seem like there's anything different here. Right? We got you, Brendo. Don't worry about it, buddy. I'm here for you, dude. We got you. Me and all of chat, we got you. Yeah, I don't think there's gonna be anything different here in this house. In this, the house of weird. But we might as well look around real quick, right? Get a feel for things. Give me a minute to acclimate to the controls again. Do you want me to do you want me to take a picture of which one? Which one you want? Should we just like get real close? This is where the magic happens. This right here, this toilet right here, this is where the magic happens. Let's go put this on our board. Yeah, quick house tour, I guess. Here, let's put it right in the center of the board. It all comes back to toilet. It all comes back to toilet. I also like how all my like pictures are like phasing through each other over here. This is the trash corner. In case people forgot, this is where we put all of our trash pictures. I think I was just on a mission last week. But now we're just back at the game and I don't know what's going on. So let's take a picture. Plus, hear me out. Everyone else was taking pictures of the toilet. I don't just do what everyone else does. We couldn't get in here previously. Sorry, my being able to open that door kind of broke my brain for a second. We got Starbreeze again. The everywhere news around the world. Oh no. Okay, hold on. Are we bad, Dad? Is it gonna... Oh, game, are you gonna make us be the terrible trope of bad dad? I would like to not. Newspaper says, kills the wife and commits suicide. The daughter is still missing. Please, game. Or is Glassman the bad dad? Starbreeze. New Tempo! That's what that says. Okay, well... If that's where this goes, I'm gonna be fairly annoyed. And by fairly annoyed, I mean extremely annoyed. That's another trope that we just need to do away with. It's so overused. Laundry's important. Go take care of it. It's so overused and so poorly done and just obnoxious. It is the trope. And I want it to not be the trope. Why is there Chester? We have a VHS that says Chester. What is this? Into the dark. Chandron Apartments, the Flores incident. That's the... Forgot I could push things that scared the bejeebus out of me. Hello? Oh, that was me trying to open the door. Okay. Oh. I didn't think I, like, clicked on it. I don't like that I'm getting so much stuff right now. Okay, what is this? What does this say? Unovo, the game that kills! Area 51 updates! Hold on. Join us as we investigate the secrets of the easily forgotten palace. What is the government hiding from us? We have very few options. Can I, like, pin this on the board, or is it too big? Okay, hold on. It's too big. Okay, well, we'll put it here. That all belongs there now. So what do I have? I have a VHS. Do we have a VCR? Not in here. Where else do we have a TV? Also, I keep hearing, like... I keep thinking I hear, like, an extra footstep every so often, and I don't like it. Not a fan of it. We do have a VHS in here, but the power is not on. And we've got the game cartridge again. Okay. We just gotta convince folks to, like, be creative about what they're doing. Please. Notebook. I'll just take a picture of the camera since we're not a person apparently. There was a game. There was a game where you took Polaroids and you had to like shake them. Insert a cup. I wish I could draw on the pictures themselves. That'd be pretty cool. Fuck. I want to figure out what game that is because I like that. Oh, I hate... Oh! Okay, I can't cross. Sorry, I thought it wouldn't let me go through, like, immediately, and that wasn't great. Didn't like that. Fuck, why is it so dark? I don't want to be here anymore. Just realized? We've been a vampire the whole time. She's not in the fridge. Oh. I'm gonna close that. Not cottage cheese. Okay, so I can't do anything with the VCR. Sorry, I'm like... Also, hold on a second. I smell... what smells like something burning. And I don't know if somebody's cooking something or not. So I'm gonna go check on that real fast. Because it could just be idiot boy not know. It smells different than the stove, the stove or the oven being cleaned. It smells different than that. So it could just be idiot roommate cooking, or it could be something on fire. So I'll be right back. BRB, y'all. Confirmation it is idiot roommate not knowing how to cook. Using an air fryer hasn't cleaned it out. It's fine. It's not fine, but there is nothing I can do about it. Queer Company! Hey, y'all! Welcome in! Glad I just sat down. Icarus and Vanny! Hello, hello, hello! How are you guys doing? Doing just some just chatting. How are you guys? I'm so glad to see that you guys are streaming again. It makes me very happy. How are y'all doing? Legally Ellis? Is that how you say your name? Legally Ellis! Welcome in. Thank you for stopping by. Hello, Raiders, and welcome! Good, good. I'm glad you guys are doing well. Alright, let's pop on over here real fast so I can do a quick introduction for myself. Hello, friends! I am Kayshurrr. I'm a queer streamer who focuses on horror and mystery games mostly. But yeah. Self-care time. That's totally cool. Go take care of yourselves. Get something to eat, get a drink, stretch, do what you gotta. Sarah. Thank you for the gift subs, friend. But yeah, Raiders, welcome in. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kayshurrr. Like I just said, I am an LGBTQ plus streamer. Focuses on horror and mystery games. We're currently playing a game called Mirror Layers. It's a little spooky. I'm spooked. Takes a lot to like genuinely spook me. This is kind of spooking me. But yes, I offer content warnings for every game that we play. Ellis, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. If you do need any of the content warnings for a game that we are checking out, you can just do !CW. I pulled it up there, as did our mod Blown Apart. Hi, C Drummer Boy. Thank you for the follow as well. I appreciate it. But yeah, I offer content warnings for every single game that we play, because I think that making informed decisions about the kind of media that we watch and partake in is very, very important. And if you're ever interested in checking out the game that we are playing, you can type in game link, and it'll pull up a link to the game so you can purchase it, wishlist it, do whatever you want with it, share it with your friends. Sarah! Thank you for the gift sub. That's totally cool. Thank you for letting me know, Ellis. Drummer Boy, thank you for popping in and saying hi. Work is very important. I understand if you gotta go. And that goes for any of the Raiders. I know that, our wonderful friends over at Queer Company are going and taking care of themselves. But if you guys also need to stand up, do a stretch, get some water, get some food, go about your business, it's totally understandable. I got it. It's important that you take care of yourself. But yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I gotta say, but I think that's about it. So, welcome in, get comfy and cozy. We're gonna hang out and get a little skirt together. Luna, Sarah, thank you for the contributions to the wholesome stream. I was just about to remind people about that. But you beat me to it. Good job, Luna. Emmy, thank you for the contribution as well. But welcome in, friends. We're happy to be here. So yeah, like I said, we are playing a spooky game called Mirror Layers. It's interesting. It does require... Sorry, I had to get up and step away, so I had to stop the game for a minute. Ellis, thank you for the contribution as well. That's very sweet of you. Fruity, thank you as well. Everyone who's given points to that dang community challenge means a lot to me. Okay. I have to pick everything back up, don't I? Okay. This is fine. Anyway, neat aspect about this game. You can take pictures. You can draw on a notepad, take notes for yourself. Here is our beautiful little art wall. All the things that I have drawn for everyone. Bono, thank you for the contribution as well. It's super lovely to meet you as well, Ellis. Go get some food. We have essentially just started streaming. Only been here for about a half an hour. We'll be here for another couple of hours. I usually stream 3 hours. 2 to 3 hours, depending on which stream it is, and I stream a ton. So we'll see you around. I'm here for this wave idea. Here for it. Right, one person remembers, everyone else follows. It's good, it's good. We gotta grab all of the things, don't we? Okay. Go take care of it. We'll be here when you get back. No sweats. Neat thing about this game is it does require participation from other players. So you've got to use the in-game internets. Can wander through some files. Check out some of... Excuse me, I'm very hiccupy all of a sudden. Ghost Kisser's still here. Yeah, you can contact other players, check out what they've drawn, what they've uploaded. It's very good. Happy to have y'all here. It's lovely. We need to put these down. We need to. I don't want to not have the camera or the cartridge on me. Where was the VHS? Was that out on the balcony? Welcome in, Bono! Hello, Luna! How are my friends doing? Okay, but hear me out. There it is.
Hello, Bono.
Thank you for the bits, Sarah. Hear me out, though, Emmy. I did organize my piles, but because I quit the game momentarily to go check on what was going on downstairs, it got rid of everything in my inventory. So now my piles are organized again. Who says that health aid stuff can't also be cute? It's true though, thigh high's always cute. I'm glad that you've got.
So we came here to burgle your turts.
Spooked me. Spooked me. I'm glad that you got your compression socks finally, Bono, and I'm glad that you think they're cute. That's a big plus. I'd call that a win.
And that's a rock fact.
Hi, rock fact. What is... Oh no. Oh no.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skull will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
I was still in the prepared to be scared phase. I'm sorry. Good effort though. Please, game. I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Is this rotating anything else? It is. I hate this. Right? It absolutely hides a lot of the puzzle from me. And that's not fantastic. I can't determine what is going on. Please, game. Does this also? That does also turn that one. Ah! not the ghost wolves. I mean, I can back up, which helps a little bit, but not enough. Also, it's just very difficult to determine what's happening. Okay, hold on. That's not what I wanted to do at all. We got 6 of these, right? These are connected. These are connected. These are connected. These are connected. Yeah. 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 Okay. Ah! What if we just do this until we get it right? I did not like that sound. Don't breathe at me, game. Okay, there is a bed in here. Good. I don't like this puzzle. Can it not? I just don't... I don't like it. I mean, it has to be able to be solved, right? Because I can't remove anything. If you've got a potential method, let's go. Like, get this one in place. We tried 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, that one's in place. This one is? Oh, fuck. Hold on. I messed it up.
It's O.
Those pauses, though! Kimmer rolled! Okay, it's back to where it was. We got half of it, or, like, figured out. But these 3... Like, if I rotate this one, I could probably eventually get this. Is this... These are both attached to each other. I don't think anything else is. Is there anything else attached to this one, though? I don't think... Yeah, I'm kind of with Luna at this point, that this is... You can't solve this. Also, hey, Cyril, how's it going? Unless...
Hello, Cyril.
Sarah! Okay, that was done 4 times. I need to do this one more, though? Because that's upside down. But no, thank you for the bits. Also, sorry, I'm keep expecting something to show up.
Loving K showers.
Actually, I also love K showers, but that's just because everyone's here, and that makes me very happy. I'm just stoked to be anywhere where my friends are. I don't like that thump. I am drinking for man juice. Top left, bottom left. Please. Are you really? I'm very excited about it. Yeah, no, we've got man juice back. I am remembering to use mugs for my soda instead of just drinking it out of the can. Because I got big juice now. Also, Smiley! Thank you for the contribution for the wholesome stream. We're halfway there. Whoa! Ooblets only player. It's more Ooblets funding. Okay. You gotta see the Ooblets thing. You do gotta see the Ooblets thing. Just gonna keep occasionally bringing this up. Are we at 300 now? Oh. 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 We're at 303, I guess. You're gonna love the oops. Not the oops, just the oops. Thanks, Emmy. I didn't even realize. Genuinely didn't even notice. Oops is just oops upside down. It's true.
Congratulations.
Thanks! I was thinking about doing something for 300, but because we just did something for 200, I think we'll probably wait until 400 and just slowly start doubling that number. Can't wait any longer.
Don't you want to become a cult leader? Since the death of God, there's been a vacancy open. You could fill that void.
What? Wait, no, you were, okay, it's fine. Everything's fine. Thanks, y'all. Welcome in, Willis. How are you doing? Oh. Oh. I was hoping nobody would ever try that. That scared me, yes. So those are supposed to be VIP only sounds, but my chatbot hates me and doesn't know how to set it so that VIPs and mods can use it. Gotta mess around with it though. It's just so sudden. No one's prepared for Waluigi ever. You hear me? We're just gonna stand here, try and do this puzzle constantly. Nobody expects Waluigi. It's true though. Do you ever expect Waluigi? I don't think so. I don't think so. I can do a hydrate. Thank you for the hydrate, Sarah. everyone else, also do a hydrate. Because it's important. You shouldn't. You shouldn't expect Waluigi every day. That's not great. That sounds dangerous. What if I... Don't like that sound. I don't like this at all. I am beginning to think that this may be impossible. Okay. Sorry, Cyril, my phone also has that issue. I got the gritty problem too. In that my phone always wants to autocorrect fruity to gritty. And it's not great. Not prepared for that kind of responsibility. What? How can I... That's not quite right. These ones are the issues, not Ura. Gritty Spruce is your Warner alter ego. No! Oh no! I love Celine though. Celine, best boy. I gotta save everyone in that stupid game. Why is House of Ashes so demanding? Can we... Hold on. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. It's fine. It's fine. This is just what we're doing for the rest of today. I hope everyone's prepared. Okay. Can we... It's not a straw. It's about as aggravating as one. But it's not a straw. Can confirm. I could see how maybe you would think that. Okay, you know what? Let's move on. Excuse you? Why is that just meat? Yeah, maybe not that door. Maybe... What are you? get so low? Oh, I think it was just like a... Okay, hold on. Hate meat closet. I think that's supposed to be a bathroom, though? Which makes me hate meat bathroom even more? Do you work? No. Where do you keep your meat? I keep my meat in the fridge. Like a normal person. Yeah, that's just a meat bathroom. Meat water closet. More meat rooms! I dislike the amount of meat rooms that there are. Move over, Inc. 555-0173. 555-0173. 555-0173. 555-0173. 555-0173. Got it written down. Oh, thank you guys. I'm just over here screaming numbers at myself. Okay, you can turn off now. Not 8675309. God. No, I gotta keep that open so I know that that's not a meat room. Light, please. Why is everything wiggling? Five, 555-0173. Ugh.
This is Move Over Inc. Customer Support. How can I help you? It seems like this Enigma is broken. We're sorry for the inconvenience. We're currently processing your request.
Oh, I don't like this.
You should hear us. It's our crane motion. It will let you escape.
Okay, okay. I got the achievement! Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark? No, no, don't get back on the beam. He asked us to give him answers. Can I hide under desks? I can. Good. We're in a new location. First order of business. Where can I hide? Oh, I hate this. It is 4 o'clock. That's why the bell went off. The ding ding ding. It was time. Can I fit in here? Don't like this. I feel like I should keep the closets and stuff open so I can easily just run in if I have to. I hate this. I hate this so much. Is that a meat radio? It is a meat radio. Hi, meat radio. Aww. Baby Sarah. Bad toilet. Another bad toilet. I think when I was a kid, I needed... I don't like that. I needed the, like, the closets and stuff to 100% be closed. Ah! Ah! Mirror Man, please! That's a bathroom! Fuck! Please, 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 please. I need to get into not a meat room. Not a meat room. No! Please.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine. Shrieking skulls will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
I expect that one always now. I always expect that one. Is he gone? Also, Cyril, thank you for the contribution. He did. I genuinely forgot what I was saying. He's still out there. Travis Willis, thank you for the contributions as well. Look. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Travis. Yeah. As a kid, I needed every door closed. Because if I could see into it, then it was just this black void that anything could come from. But if it was closed, then at the very least I would hear it open, and then I would know to bolt. Is how I rationalized it as a child. I couldn't handle anything being open, though. Also, meat cages open. Where did our potato go? Yeah, but I'm also a nearly fearless adult. And cat voids are delightful. Can't convince me otherwise. Okay. Alright. He's still around. Why won't he leave? Why won't man go? But seriously, who stole our potato friend? can't do anything. He won't go away. We're trying to have a talk. Glass man. Why does the wind chime chase us? What are you doing? He's made my flashlight go funky. Is he just going to camp here? Because this is going to be a problem. What if I just don't look at him? It's doing its thing and I need it to stop. Welcome in, Yuichi. How's it going? It needs to go away forever, 'cause I need to progress and do some things. Am I wrong? I thought, glad you're doing well. It's going. Can't say it's going great, but it's going. Oh, the Poppy Playtime game? I have not played it, but I am familiar with it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Cyril, if you could just poorly describe every game for me, I would love that. Okay, I think he's actually gone because the things in the walls are gone. I definitely could. I have seen other people play it, so I am vaguely familiar with what happens with it, but people want to see me play Poppy Playtime. I'll play Poppy Playtime. We can play Poppy Playtime. Cause what, it's only the first episode right now. Right, I need serial descriptions for all games, honestly. Real talk. But that was goopy? That was goopy sounding and I did not like the goopy. Oh no. Not runes. Okay, hold on. Oops. That's the one I wanted it on. Right? We did understand what you were trying to say, though. We got you. Yeah, I'd be down to play Poppy Playtime sometime. Because I think it's only got the first episode out right now, but it will be coming out with more. Look, hold on, I have to think about how to say this before I say it. Because I don't want to sound rude, because that's not what I'm trying to do. But, look, I've worked with toddlers, and they are notoriously terrible about giving any sort of real indicators for what you're saying. If I can understand them, then I think I can make it through your descriptions, Cyril, which do have at least some sort of indication as to what you're talking about. Sorry, did I just hear glass? Hello? I do speak stink brain. I am fluent in stink brain because I too have stink brain. I can either recall something that I haven't thought about in 10 years with complete and utter clarity. Or I can just make incoherent noises trying to describe something that I did 10 minutes ago. It's all good, Willis. Walk the doggos. Doggo. Sweet beast. We will be here when you get back. This building looks like the rotten onion I found it very funny as the other day. Cyril, no! You threw it away. I hope. Also, we're on level 13 now. My inventory is full. I don't need the core, I guess. Tyler was playing with my D&D miniatures today and learned tons of names for new monsters today. They will recall none of them and instead make up their own names. But the image of the monsters will remain. Oh, sorry, a bird just landed outside my window and it scared the piss out of me. What, you want to fucking fight? He's gone. We can tell you what every item in Isaac does, but not what we ate for breakfast. Fucking truth. Wow, yeah, no, for real. That is an accurate summation of how brain go. Please. I don't want you falling off the wall! We're on the roof. Hello, roof. I don't like the sounds that the sliding doors make. Mostly because it's just quiet enough that it could be perceived as being very far away. And I'm not can't say I'm a fan of that. Is there a ladder or something up here? It's all good. Take your time. We're struggling. Bird is fucking back. Bird, I'm gonna get you, Bird! Excuse me while I scream at nature. Elevator. How do we... I want this meat radio. Like in-game, but also like IRL. I would like to have this meat radio. Okay, I don't... Oh, absolutely. Stop whispering at me. Game... I understand that I need to find a code. Right? For our little... to get to our little meat radio friend. Cool. Understood. I don't know where to find that code. I think it's time... Don't make those sounds. Don't have space in my inventory. I think it's time we address, we go talk to the internet. Because maybe we can find the other parts of the CD with the internet? Internet. Internet. Okay, hold on. Here, piece 1. Here's CD part 1 if anyone needs. Keep my diary posting here, share my experience. That's the same person. Oh, they found a PC with a missing password? Which piece do we have? Let's go ahead and insert. CD piece 4. Okay, should we... Oh, my caps lock is on. Oh, wow. That is how you spell peace. That's not how you spell peace? That's not right. That's fine. Peace doesn't look like a word anymore, to me, is all. Brain, please. This is embarrassing, Brain! What'd you find for Meat Radio? Here, let's download piece 1. Fucking birds, though. Pick up. Pick up. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. I need to put everything down. Also, you know what? Hold on, let's pick that up. No, VCR. Red Meat Radio is a podcast that discusses Utah politics. Oh no. So that's in your search history now. Not the worst thing that could have potentially shown up with Meat Radio. As we're thinking about it. Not the worst possible thing. Selected file cannot be sent. I can't send the VHS? What? Please. No! Oh, our picture could. That is true. Hold on. We can take a picture of it. You're right. Okay, hold on. We gotta remove it. Good call. Good call. Oh! No. Don't set it on the altar. Noted. It's fine. I wonder if it's something that, like, not everybody could find. You know, I'm gonna take a picture of all these. I'm gonna upload it and see if anybody else has come across it yet. Because, again, had I not, like, wandered around in here, I don't think I wouldn't have found those. And obviously it's not necessary. Like, I thought it was because I picked up a flashlight out on the balcony, but they have a flashlight in the mirror realm. so... Let's go ahead and post this up. Formulate a message for people to see. Okay, upload a photo. What am I doing? Sent. We were downloading pieces, weren't we? We have 4. We downloaded 1. Piece 2. And we still need piece 3, right? There's piece 4. Piece 3, anyone? Thank you. Great. Can we just be a nice person and, let's be kind, right? So no one else has to go back and wander around if they happen to find our message. And beautiful. Can I edit my main message? No. I've received a core. Someone liked my post. Okay, how do I make this not be broken? That's the real question, right? Oops. 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 Okay, camera, get out of here. Does it say anything? 2019 data. But how do we... Can we do... No. Maybe? Can we edit file? On that day we tried making contact, but nobody knows if I'm cons... Oh! Text editor, please. Oh wait, it's already open. Can we do a new one? Which one was this, though? Which one did we look at? Piece 3. We looked at piece 3. Okay. Piece 1. We gotta figure it out on our own. Please, game. So that's 1 and 3. Here's 2. I just want to be able to see them all in the same place, right? Okay, this absolutely goes here. Just because of that. Okay, so on that day we tried making contact, but nobody knows. If I'm conscious about it, let me tell you, it's just because of that old radio. I did make contact. And that's why I'm so sure of it. Divine messages permeate this place. And slowly they will permeate my very soul. Can we save as CD message whole? Files corrupted. May have been modified or corrupted. Okay, never mind. Can I look at this? You can open only 5 files. Okay, well then let's... Yes. Can we open the VHS tape? This item is purely descriptive and has no use for any enigma. Oh, never mind. Time is ruined with this videotape. We have no idea what it contains, and maybe it's for the best. Photograph is as close as there is to the layers. Sentimentally, of course. Okay. What is... Let me put that down real fast. Let's put that in. What does that say? This item is purely descriptive, has no use for any enigma. A rare game, almost impossible to find. The cartridge generated from the mirror is not the full game. It is merely a reproduction that contains only the levels played by Greta. Who is Greta? Who is Greta? I want to try... I want to try these as well. Well, we've already done the videotape, haven't we? I have to sneeze. I think I do. Excuse me. After breaking in, officers found the woman's body in the refrigerator. Laura's body, barbarously torn to pieces, had been hastily placed by her spouse inside the appliance. There's no trace, however, of the Crane family's eldest daughter. Police have already started the search, but the tragic possibility that the child was previously killed and hidden elsewhere is not excluded. The Crane murder-suicide brings to mind events that took place in the Chandran Palace, and just like then, a thick blanket of mystery covers the whole story. The magazine is old, its paper rotten by time and humidity. The few intact spots reads the following. You've all heard about Roland Kayshurrr in the past few months, haven't you? Under the guise of a humble florist, the criminal trafficked organs. But there's sides of the blank treated as rumors and disavowed by the authorities. Roland, that's what all the organs in the pots were. When the police broke the apartment, it was already too late. The squad found Roland's dead body, stabbed all over, in the blank. Filed as a blank. Whoever worked on the Blitz report totally ignored the agent Shane Cooper had to say, or what the agent Shane Cooper had to say, which is... There's another readable spot. Child lived with his father and is now missing. Roland killed and hid his son someplace unknown, and he already sold his organs. Blank to those who live in the building. On the day of the blitz, Chester was seen returning from school. Yikes. You know what? I kind of want to keep all of these in... I wish I had all the keys from the very beginning. At this point. Because they had some messages on them. As well. Go ahead and save that. We'll just keep them in there. It's fine. Okay. Alright. But it still brings us back to the issue of, like, how do we get this to work? Toilet. But where was tape? That just doesn't open anymore. Alright. But who was tape? I'm sure we'll need to find, like, someplace in the office. Why meat? Why meat behind photo? Or picture? Are you tape? But who was meat? And why can't I interact with this? Okay. Well, is there anything else? That's a meat room. That's a meat room. There's just no space there. That's a meat room. Potato friend is gone. That's a meat room. Can't unlock that. Well, it says I can drag. No. That one is open. That's a meat room. Why so many meat? Goodness gracious. There isn't anything in there. Can't open that door. There's nothing here. So whatever we need is here somewhere, right? In theory. Well, there was that, where did we get... someone mentioned, like, a computer with a password. Hi. Welcome back. Chester, maybe? Invalid password. Radio. Invalid password. Is there any identifying anything in here about what this password might be? Welcome back, Emmy. Excuse me. I wonder if the password might be on the disc? Everyone eat some food. Can't open that one. No. This is how we got it. Don't gasp at me. What are these? Bad photos. All right. Okay, there's Meat Radio again. Hello, Meat Radio. It's hard to kind of like see anything. Whispers. Thank you, Emmy. There's always whispers. I need you to understand, Travis, that there are always whispers. Have we just not been in here? Well, that seems wrong. Okay, well, there's nothing in here. I don't know where he is. You don't know where I am. I'm pooping. It's not the time at all, Emmy. Is Moon doing all over? Only I can leave the toilet if I want. I'm not just stuck here. I need Glass Man to go away. I was so distressed during that time though. Like I have the option to leave this stall. I mean, I'm not going to, but like I have the option to, as opposed to just being stuck in a cutscene. I think that's him leaving. I think that's him officially leaving. He's given up. Also, I don't think I have the space to take a picture of this. I also don't have the camera on me right now. I love the fact that you all know exactly what I said when I was sitting on that toilet in Moonduin and had little Hey Man show up. Please. Is there anything? This is where we got our piece, right? So where... Sometimes you do be pooping. It's fine. It's a completely normal thing to do. Everybody poops. Shit. I don't be shitting right now. Sorry to break it to you this way. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing at the moment, and that's fine. But also, I would like to know. Try fishing. I have not tried fishing. Nor will I ever try fishing. And there wasn't really anything up here, was there? Don't breathe at me. Can't do anything with any of this. So do I need to go back? Not Donovan. Don't bring Donovan up. You should do it. You should rewatch Sherlock. I would like to know how to get meat radio. There's not really anything in here to give me a clue, is there? I mean, the radio's important. That much we've determined, right? But I don't know what the password for that computer could be. Computer. Because it wasn't Chester. Wasn't radio. Password. Okay. Yeah, Travis, crack the code. You've shown us that you're able to. Hold on, let's... Can't access the menu. It's a forest. Tree. Oh my god. Floor ice. Thanks for the lurk, Luna. Roland? Shoework. Meet radio. I tried password. I did actually try password. Cause they're could try secure. Let's go back. Password what? Not admin. Is can't interact with any of those. And none of that, like, that's not playing anything anymore. There's nothing out here. That's meat. It's true. We'll try password 1. Sorry, I thought that was like a hallway for a second. Thought we were gonna find some Narnia bullshit in there, and I was not about that. You're also meat. Just the squeaks. The little squeaks. I think it's time to go back to the computer. Okay, propaganda help. started this new nightmare again. Found a PC with a missing password and also a part of a broken CD. There's also a lock pad on the display showcase. Yeah. Yeah, no Narnia, please. Piece number 4, everyone. You know the drill. I would like to never Narn, honestly. Wait a second. Is the Yoichi here the same Yoichi that was in chat? Oh no, don't be like that, please. I mean, I know I kind of did that, but it was a joke. Anyway. Ghost Kisser was also having a hard time. 100% a coincidence. 100%. Absolutely. Please tell me I'm not the only one having trouble here. I got the CD, put it in, and looked at the pictures. What's the next step? Also, it's funny. When I try to hide from Buckethead, my beloved, he always gets me. But I was stomping around, even slamming doors, and he refused to come out. Red circles drawn around spots on the wall, floor, and ceiling, and I don't really know what to do with those spots. Checked a few and there wasn't anything useful as far as I could see. Right? Help us, Ghost Kisser. Well, I feel like I've missed a step. There's been a leap here, and I'm missing it. Oh, it's because... Okay, he's already put the CD together. How do you fix the CD? Sorry, I love this, that I had to search for all the pieces myself. Forgot what game I was playing. Oh! Now I'm getting called out. Oopsies. Sorry. Yoichi, is this you? Thank you. Thank you. Oh my god. Very good. Tickled me. That was great. Okay. Let's... That was a very beautiful moment. Wait, I don't know. There was something... So, to clarify for myself, right? Sorry, excuse me. We just thought Ghost Kisser was hilarious. It was just very funny. Just had to go with the bit. And then the bit turned into a full-blown thing. And it's fine. Okay, what are our options here? Copy, cut, paste, revert. Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. I appreciate it. It's very funny. Ooh, excuse me. Can I put all of these together and take it out as a whole CD? Doesn't seem... 1, 2, 3... Where's 3? Oh, fuck. Just throw all that there? No, because that still only does... Am I just being being, like, super obtuse right now. I don't know that CMD is what I want. I guess files. Many files can be opened and edited with the text editor by double-clicking. I feel like editing is the way that I need to go, right? But can we... Where did... Did I fuck it up because I put message in there? Is that the proper formatting? There was an Agent Cooper in there. We love you, Dale Cooper. Yeah, it's just CD. Save as CD? Did that work? Oh! Oh! We found tape. We found tape. Okay, then do I put this in? I will just be leaving this whole mess here. That took me way too long to, like, figure out. But it's fine. It's fine. We got it. We got there eventually. Needed copy pasta. It's true, but we figured it out. Sorry that took me so long. Sometimes my brain doesn't like to do the thing that it's supposed to do, which is function. CD! So then am I supposed to... I think I need to go back and get our camera. My assumption is, like, I get that those are locations in, like, the real world, and that we should find those in the mirror world. That much I understand, and probably would have put that together even if I hadn't seen the message on propaganda. But this is not where that's not where my camera is. But the real question is, am I supposed to find that here or in the mirror world? And the answer is in the mirror world. Okay. I'm glad I could just figure that out very, very easily. I didn't think that that had changed. But I suppose that's something that we should probably check at the start of each enigma from here on out, just to see if it, see if that world still loops. So that we're trapped on the 12th floor. Or if Oop. Okay. Wow, this is just gonna be hard to do. Okay, so that's in a stairwell, right? Get out of here. Take my trash. So, photo 1. Stairwell. Good morning, Allie. Hello. Photo 2 is roof by a vent. Well, it's not a vent, but by a fan. That's what I'm gonna call it. I don't think that's what it is, but that's what I'm calling it. Gonna say face the railing. Please. And it says buy, not toy. I already cannot read my been here the whole time, just not conscious. Well, welcome to consciousness. Fan. That's supposed to be an arrow on left. P3. What do we got? What do we got next? Also the roof. Wall. Oop. Wall by crane. Photo 4. I could just come back and look at these, but I don't feel like it. Locker with a calendar. Locker with calendar. Wall. I like the notepad, and I appreciate the fact that it is pretty, like, accurate as far as, like, the sensitivity is concerned, but also I need it to be a bit better. Oh, that's where we got the CD, isn't it? Or it's like right next to it. I'm gonna call it like a recording room. Window. And I guess technically this would be the right side. Since we're in the mirror world, right? Break room, above fridge. I wish I could use the notepad while I'm at the computer as well. That would be delightful. Break room. Above fridge. And I think this is the last one. Vending machines. Roof. I bet this is how we get the code, isn't it? Vending machine. Roof. Okay, and that goes back to 1. Okay, so we need to find... Let's go to the stairwell first. I'm pretty sure that's the stairwell just before the roof. Yeah, because there's no railing here. Although, there's no railing here either? Here it is. Oh, that's cool. Okay, hold on. Oh, it's the password! Okay. I figured that this would probably be for the meat radio. But that is not the case. Okay, so we got the stairwell. Oh shit! Tis Rebel Lab! Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Holy crap! Sorry. Okay, everything's fine. But yeah, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Scaring the bejeebus out of me. And then this is the next one, right? Oh, wait. Oh, no, it is! It is! Okay. This is for the meat radio, then? Lamia! Hi! Don't spook me like that. Everything's scary! Oh my god! Okay, wall by the crane. Oof! That's gonna be... this one? Yeah. 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 Password is Moose87. How did they know? But how did they know? That that would be odd. Okay, what the fuck does this say? Locker with calendar. I can read my own handwriting. Honestly though, like I know I have complained a little bit about the sensitivity of the notepad. Of all the games that I've played that have something even like remotely similar, which there haven't been that many, but a lot of games that do end up like having a system where you can write or draw anything out, it's bad. It's really bad, and like it's not easy to write using just like a mouse, but for the most part I can read my stupid notes, and I consider that a win because my handwriting, even like with a pen and paper, is not great. Shit. Please don't have seen me. Please don't have seen me. Also, thank you for the bubble, Travis. He didn't see me. Okay, good. Oof. Meat lad in the wall? I don't know what their whole shtick is, but they show up when Mirror Man shows up, when Glass Boy shows up. I think you can get cores from them if you're quick and not a coward like I am. Otherwise, if you can't get cores from them, I wonder if you can put cores in them. I haven't looked into them too much because I've been too scared to wander around them. But I assume you can get cores because I think at one point I didn't have a core in my inventory, and I think I like ran past one of the people in the wall. And I might have panic clicked on him, and then I think I ended up with a core. I was also scared, so I could have very easily picked it up from somewhere else.
Spooky, scary skeletons and shivers down your spine.
Was not as bad.
Will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
Nice try, Bunno! Also, look, it's a Lamia! Hi, Sweet Bean. And he's gone. Hey, I gotta sit you down, okay? Oh, thank you. It is the bean! A Lamia update for Emmy. I can do that. I gotta set her down, though. Okay, hold on. Or can I pause you? Is this fine? Is this okay? Can we do an update, but with you here? Is that possible? Thank you for the licks. She's doing very well. We finished her medicine yesterday. Yesterday. And she's doing very good. She's been super snuggly the last couple of days, which has been very good. Cause she wants to be held when she doesn't feel too great, but she's a lot less tolerant of me petting her when she doesn't feel good. Hi. But as you can tell, she's just very happy right now. But she's doing great. She's happy and sassy. Hi. Please don't bite my nose. But yeah, I had to like run a bunch of errands this morning, so I left for a couple of hours to go do that. And I got home and I couldn't find her and didn't know where she was. And I wasn't like too worried about it initially because she likes to hide sometimes. But I found her in my bedroom, just hanging out on my pillow, just chilling there, sleeping, which was really great to see. I don't usually let her on my pillow because she exudes fur all of the time. Speaking of, I got llama fur all over my face now. But yeah, she's a turd. And likes to lay on my pillow sometimes. And I don't usually let her. But the fact that she went up there on her own, unprompted, while I wasn't even here, is a very, very good sign. Because for the last few weeks, 2-3 weeks, she's just been sleeping on the couch. Unless I've, like, picked her up and put her somewhere else. And it was just very lovely to see. Kitty cat. That she decided that she was comfortable enough to just go lay somewhere else. She is feeling better, and it's very great. I'm extremely thankful that she's doing well. Okay, let's get rid of that. Recording room, window. But she's doing, yeah, no, she's doing fantastic. And yeah. We'll have her appointment next week. Oh, those aren't windows. Okay. Yeah, we've got her appointment next week to just do like a follow-up, make sure that everything is actually okay. but she's running around. She's being sassy. She loves the toy that came in yesterday that Smiley got for her. Absolutely loves it. I do have to, like, be right there when she's playing with it because she will run off with it and probably break it. That's not great. Break room. But she has a ton of fun with it, which is super fantastic. Vending machines. I have to wait for those ones. Those are the last ones. Where is the break room? It's down a floor, isn't it? Okay, that's fine. Lami is a chompy baby. She always has been. She's not... It's not usually meant to be, like, vicious or mean. She doesn't always... Can you not do that? I don't like it when you do that, Lami. Hey. What did I just tell you? I said no. But yeah, she's always been chompy. But she's been nicer lately and has at least been, like, offering some licks and not just mean bites. Right? Goodness gracious. Okay, we've got that one done. And then vending machine. Back upstairs. Ayo. Okay. Need to talk about this game for a second. Right? I really like the puzzles in this game. They take a little bit initially to kind of figure out. But I don't necessarily get, like, super frustrated about not necessarily, like, understanding it. I like the fact that you can turn to other people in... This one's an M. That stays that way, right? Okay. Is it that one? It is. I used to know what these rooms were, or like what a lot of these were. Not anymore. Okay. Please. No. You stay there. Twelfth floor. Okay. What was I saying? Right. I appreciate the fact that, like, his mouth went all wiggly. I also really like New Friend. Okay. Self-care question? I'm trying. What? What is that? Hold on a second. I also enjoyed hanging out with everyone yesterday. Oh, it's my note. Okay. I'm littering. Hold on. You know what? No. Fuck it. This is where those live now. Oh, no. Oh, I've done it bad. Oh. I want... Sorry. Frequencies... 100 kilohertz, 50 kilohertz. Bad Book Club, great. You should definitely go. You should definitely go to Bad Book Club. Over at Fruity Spruce's channel. I mean, it'll happen in the Discord, but go to Bad Book Club. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's book club for bad books. It's great. You should go. Be there. But no, I also had a really fun time just hanging out with everyone in the server last night. It was delightful. Right, well, a guy talks about his insanely hot mom. I do want to see if there's anything new on the internet. I don't hear the dinging sound. Okay. Did I not save it? I thought I did. Oh, I guess, okay. What are they? I mean, you gotta wander around with them, Itsuna. Oh. I don't know if Yuichi is still here, but rude. I love our terribly cursed and ugly friend. Oh! Sorry, their date! And it's a picture of their buddy! we're downloading that picture. It's ours now. Look at it! Aww! Cute! Look, even meat radios deserve a good dinner here and there. Okay, well. Oh, hold on. Can I... There we go. Wait, no, there was like another option in there. I thought I saw a second option to like. Did I just imagine that? I thought I saw a little diamond like on the front of him. Now it said pick up. Okay. So I can't change the frequency? This is gonna be a little rough to do. Here, let's... No, don't throw it on the ground. You absolute goober. Pin it. Pin it. Can I not pin it? Please, game, I just want to be able to put it into my notebook. Ugh. Let's get out the notebook. That's a terrible 12. Just pretend that the 2's got a horn. It's fine. 150. 13th will be 225. That's also a very bad 2. And 150. And then the roof. 201.5. Okay, and then we'll leave that there. Cross on over. I can't really tell. Because that doesn't. Let me inspect it. Not really anything I can do to, like, change the frequency myself, right? And it doesn't look like it's changing, but it's also... Honestly, I also trust radio. The issue I'm having is just that, like... It's an issue of, like, I don't know how to change the frequency, and so I don't know if I'm doing it right. Set him down. It sounds like he said something's wrong. Food making is
Skeletons and shivers down your spine.
habits.
Skull will shock your soul, seal your doom tonight.
Is now the time. Please, I'm trying to put you on the table. Oh my god. Welcome back, Luna. We got mouth radio. We figured it out. It was a very good puzzle. I liked it. Meat radio, good. I don't know. Oh no. Glassman's here. Pronoun time! I use she, her pronouns. What was that sound? Ellie uses she, her. Luna uses she, her. I'm sorry, did Glassman just use the elevator? Bono uses they, them? Woo! As per usual, if people don't feel like sharing their pronouns, you don't got to. It does make it easier for myself and everyone in chat to properly refer to you by. Oh. My brain auto-corrected it to they, them. It's good. Only them! Bono is only them! Also, Tiz! Thank you for the hydrate. We got our big juice! It is also, it is water. Don't worry. Bonaparte uses he, him. If chat can also do a good, good hydrate as well. Sorry, my brain shut down for a second there. It's fine. Also, if Glassman wouldn't mind just leaving us alone. You gotta stay hydrated. It's true. Also, welcome in, Tiz. Hope you're doing well. Excuse you, sir. Get. Don't get offended if people use she, her, though, as you are femme. Okay, good to know. Keeping it in mind. They, them. They, them. I know I've been having a hard time with it lately, but that's just because I've been talking to so many different people. And it's hard to keep track of pronouns sometimes. But if I ever misgender anyone, please let me know. It's not an intentional thing, and I try to keep track of it. I like, is he really just taking the elevator constantly? But yeah, please, let me know. Hello? Can he... Need this man to go. Radio, what are we supposed to do? Hello? I didn't hear him disappear. No, same. I definitely feel like they, them is the safe option to assume. But also, if people feel strongly about needing to be referred to by femme or masc pronouns or neo pronouns or anything, let me know. And I will change that. I try to keep track of it. But again, especially in regards to Twitch, it's so difficult just because there are so many different people constantly. And it's okay, these pronouns for this username. It helps once I hang out with people more, I can commit it to memory. But we're all learning. We're all constantly trying to keep track of it. Right? But I mean, it's one of those things where I feel it's... People generally can tell a difference between someone being, malicious and intentionally misgendering and somebody just being, just slipping up sometimes. But still, if you ever notice it, I feel like this is a safe place for you to be hey, not my pronouns. And we'll all do what we can. We will all make an effort to use the proper pronouns. It's a lot to unlearn for folks. I get that. Okay, hold on. We try. I like to cultivate a good group of people. Sorry, not sighing at you guys, sighing at the situation. Trying to figure out, again, radio, how do you work? Meet radio. Tell me your secrets. Do I have to find... I'm not really having a good time finding the signal up here. So, is there a specific location down here? Are you a bathroom radio? Got confused as to what that is. It's literally just my trash. In here? Would you like to go in the toilet? I was thinking about it. Same hat. So some of you know, I've been reading a book called The Crow Girl, right? Murder mystery, very interesting, been really enjoying it. However, there is an emphasis on the killer taking Polaroids of all of their victims and stuff. And I can't stop thinking about that every time I take a picture. Okay, what is he saying? I think we need to go back. I think we gotta go back to propaganda. Gotta go see what other people are saying, because I like just wandering around's not doing it, right? We're not really figuring anything out by just wandering around. And I keep thinking I'm where I need to be for it. Sounds to me like it said set me down 1278. I heard 78 in there. I thought it said 578 or something. And I keep hearing it say like something's wrong. I was trying to listen for the set me down because I know you mentioned that. So hold on. We got these are stupid toilet pictures. Put that there. We love meat radio. You could hear both, like both separately or from the same sort of set of words. Okay, okay. Yoichi always dropping some pretty decent hints. Is the radio still cursed? I mean, yes. Visiting specific areas of the building made the broken radio talk some gibberish nonsense, or is it? Sounds like a frequency of numbers being repeated all over again. Mail password for the computer? I want to look at what Tay has to say. I didn't mean to preview that. Sorry. Okay. Oh, that's the same. No, it's not. Do they have different frequencies than we do? They do. Okay. Frequencies for the soul. Yeah, okay, so everyone has different frequencies than we do. That's fine. Found the cutest fish. No, radio's perfect. Okay, so we do have to try and fix it first. But I love our little meat radio. Right? Stop being mean to our buddy. Oh, I didn't. I keep forgetting to do that in general. I thought I was being so clever when I, like, finally put the newspaper clipping and the magazines in there. Is it a microwave? No. Oh! Oh! Smart. Smart. Okay, alright. We just gotta get rid of all the numbers, right? To live in a world where everyone can connect each other. I could make a copy of our corrupted boy, you're right. Do you want to close the program? Yes, I do. Well, I gonna edit the file, right? And then do a new one. So we got the original file saved. Just for, you know, posterity, if nothing else. Let me get rid of these numbers and then we can read through it as well. Oops. Oops, why is caps lock on? Please. I do just want to, like, highlight everything. But also, the highlight's a little funky sometimes. Which is fine. Seems to be working just fine now. I was having issues with it earlier. Boop. Boop. Okay, I do really enjoy these kinds of puzzles. And I really appreciate the fact that, like, because I've played I'm Scared before. I think that was, like, one of the first, like, meta horror games that I ever played. Where you have to, like, crawl through files and, like, new stuff gets dumped onto your desktop. And I like the fact that this is similar to that, which I would expect from this particular dev. But that it's not necessarily as, I don't want to say clunky, because I do like meta games where you have to kind of, like, go through files and find things and mess with, like, actual files and stuff. But this is a little more, like, accessible for people who don't necessarily do that. Or don't like doing that. Also not as worried about, like, doxing myself with that. But they're, like, I don't know, I like it. They're clever, but not, they're clever and difficult. But, like, once you kind of figure it out, you're good. I think my personal problem with it, the issue that I have is that I sometimes forget to think outside of, like, solutions. And that is entirely on me. But it's good. Okay, so what does this say? To live in a world where everyone can connect to each other. To live a life where I can fully comprehend every single one of you. Wouldn't that be great? Such a unique thing, us being so close. What a life experience would it be? But isn't it peculiar? The radio you're currently peeping through, just like a portal between worlds, ready to receive voices from the past, the key word. Frequencies do come and go, but they're perpetual in this place, from lower floors to higher ones, with their order already given to... Whoopsies, I missed a whole bunch of numbers in there. With their order already given to you, what secrets could the layers contain, though? But no, I shouldn't question myself anymore. I made contact. Radio. Helps to spell it properly, though. I miss Meat Friend already. Okay, so we need 50 and 100 on the 12th floor. We're already set to 50, so let's go ahead and do that. And I know that we have more messages available to us because we solved a portion of the enigma. However, we'll check those out if we get stuck again. Excuse me? Excuse me? You can fall off the beam. In case you were wondering, in case you wanted to know, you can fall off that beam. How embarrassing. Absolutely, 100%, totally for science reasons. Just letting you know, that was me showing you that, hey, if you're not careful, you'll fall off and eat shit. I don't need to pick that up again, because I've already... I don't need to pick any of these up. I've already put those in the computer. Absolutely. I mean, that's what this channel's here for, isn't it? As we've established, we're here for the good science. It all started with vampire and the ridiculous vampire science we were trying to commit there. Our work as scientists, never done. Okay, can't cut corners there or I will fall and die. Can we? Okay, real talk. Because I am starting to think about, like, getting merch together. It'll still be a good long while, but I know we've kind of had this conversation. Shirts that say, ask me about cottage cheese blood. Thoughts on that? Yes? Okay, alright. No way. Bathroom? U-E-R. U-E dot R. We will unscramble all this later. Radio. Okay, I guess you live on the ground now. Can I... inspect. Change frequency. There we go. Okay, put away. Where... It was kind of where we started, wasn't it, that we heard the other frequency? Yeah. Someone actually asked you would it blow? Then don't wear the ask me about cottage cheese. I would like to be asked about cottage cheese blood. If somebody asks, that just means they're not a coward. H. H-I... Okay, so this has to be... The dot signifies the start of the run, right? So it's... Rue... F-H-I... Changes frequency, 150... Yeah, no, so I had the paper. I had the paper, but I wrote all the frequencies down on my notebook. We got Meat Radio back. The I wrote them down in my notebook, but forgot to tear the page out of the notebook, and because I forgot that if you die, if everything in your notebook goes away unless you've like torn it out. So let's, because this is kind of, it's kind of hard for me to read. That was because of me, right? Can I read this if it's here? Please don't fall on the floor. I would like, if I may. It's fine. Where else do we need to go? 150 and 2015 are gonna be next. I guess technically these are reversed if we're doing them in order, right? I'll just do this. 100, 50, 225, 150, 150, and 2015. Wow, bad writing. It's fine. That's a 2, in case you couldn't tell. My notes are shit. Let's just... Nope, I've already done it bad. We'll just do it this way. We'll just go ahead and rewrite it. FHI. And then 50 was RUE. And then we'll just scribble out this nonsense. Ignore all of this. None of this is real. And we'll go on. We're doing 150 next. Yeah. Which is fine, because that's still on the floor above us. It's very dark. Nope. Bathroom radio? Oh. 1.
C. J. B. C. J. B.
CJB. But that's for 150. C. J. B. That's a bad B.
C.
Sorry, I thought I heard glass.
J. B.
Can we...
Bees?
C.
B! Okay, we'll do 225 next, because that's on this floor. And then we'll do 2015 upstairs. Anything? Bad noises. That sliding door every single fucking time. Oof. Oh dang. Sorry, I just checked I just looked at the time. We might go a smidge over today. Depending on how this goes.
H.
FJH?
S J H.
F J H. No, 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 no. Fuck. Shit! Glassman, now is not the time! There are a lot of J's in this one. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Cynthia? Don't notice me, Cynthia. This is not the senpai whose attention we want. Okay, is the elevator just freaking out because he messes with tech? I think that was him disappearing. He's pressing all the buttons. What a fucking monster. Okay, and then 2015 for the roof. Oh no, he's still around. (215) Spook FM. Tune in for all your spooky glassy needs. Listen to the wonderful sounds of Glass Man stomping around the building. Sir. Who is Glass Man? That's my question. Because we've got two instances of bad dads, right? You got Roland, and then the other one. Who was his name? It was like a CH name. Like Chandler. It wasn't Chandler. He used to be a window. Oh no. Glass Man. Fruity. Please. Too much of a pain. Glassman, you're making this real difficult for me, buddy. We got a time limit to work with here. That's him vanishing. Thank you. I have a time limit that I'm working with, but self-imposed one. Again, it's fine if I go a little over today. A rare Saturday where I can play a little late. Okay. Just a little. I also don't feel the need to, like, finish this layer tonight, since we're playing again tomorrow. But I would like to get as much done as possible. HWG. HWG. Okay, so it's computer time. Because at the very least we can... No, not the roof. Not the roof. Smashing those buttons. At the very least we can make our notes a little more coherent. Potentially see what other people have to say. Because I don't know Don't fall off of the beam again. I say as I just sprint across it like there's no issues. Yeah, why? Okay. Why can't I pin this? I can pin this. I could pin that. Don't mind the picture of the, the hanging body. I want to be able to pin the frequencies. It's fine. They can go here. I guess we don't even really need them anymore, do we? Also, I realized if we quit, we're not gonna have Meat Radio with us anymore. No, get away from me. Let's go tuck Meat Radio in. We have not gotten to the password protected computer just yet. I mean, there's a possibility that the code that we just got is password for it. And we can try, but I do want to, like, write down my thoughts a little more. Where did my paper go? Did I throw it on accident? Did I put it on the board? Did I leave it in the other fucking world? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Is it on the roof? Please. I like the little hustle up the stairs. Yeah, I mean, I figured as much. Really? Okay. I mean, I have them written down in the order that they were on the paper. So we can try it. That's not where the computer is. Is the computer in here? It is. Okay, put that down. This is unfortunate. What if I throw you here? And I throw you there? And then I still can't see anything because you're too far away. FHI. FHIRUE. FJH. CJB. HWG. Oh no. Didn't quite fit all the way, but that's okay. So let's tear that out. Where am I in this room? That's okay. I guess it doesn't... I tore it out and I thought it like automatically went into my inventory. But it did not. So we've got FHIRUE. Oh, please. FJHCJB. And HWG. That's a hell of a password you got there. I also read that as Wait, I wasn't done reading that. Oh, that scared the shit out of me. I did not like that! Hold on, I gotta take a second. My heart was not happy about that. Correspondence of Marconi, February 2019. Statue is beautiful and works exactly as they told us. Did a fantastic job. You fill my heart with pride. Your mother would be proud of you. I know you say you feel good up there, but hold on a little longer, okay? I'll come to see you soon. Draft email March 2019. They don't answer anymore, Bae. B? B. They don't answer anymore. Did it really end like this? Is it possible that all these years of work, end up in nothing? Such an absurd way? Where are you? Why did you stop talking to me? Still have so many questions. Made a decision. I would like to leave, but also I would like to just live under this desk for forever now. No, sir, please! Fuck! I fucking knew it was gonna happen too! Also, Void, I can't understand you anymore. I could see this being very Control-esque, yeah. Got the achievement. You made contact. Fuck. Fuck. Okay. Sorry. I don't like it when Meat Lad just shows up out of nowhere. Lord. Sorry, I have to hold the button down for the lighter to stay on. And it doesn't always light. Oh, who's that?
Why are you not in the house? I wanted to talk to you.
Her head is on backwards.
Why aren't you here? The lady is so sad. This place knows it. She's...
Yeah, her head is
coming.
Backwards.
Reach the elevator. I'll wait for you there.
Ah!
Run.
Ah! That's a wall of bodies. Ah! Excuse you, don't grab me. Fuck off! Yeah, we're doing fine. It's all fine. How do I get through all these corpses? I don't like being jostled by meat men. Can they not move? Okay, they are just hanging there. It's fine.
Reach the elevator.
No, I got it! I don't... Okay, hold on. Pause doesn't actually pause! This is extremely unfortunate because I have to pee. It's very difficult to see what's happening, and I know that that's kind of the point. I wish we had a slightly better light source. would like to have a slightly better view of things. It is run time, not pee time. Ugh. It's not pee time! I can't actually pause! I am stuck in a corner. Ma'am! Ma'am, this is not how we talk about our problems! I don't know where I'm supposed to go. I mean, we got further this time.
Run.
Rosy cheek lad with little butt? Good game. Good game. Again, I get trying to make it creepier by having, less light. But the lack of light makes it extremely difficult to see where I'm supposed to go, and that is less scary and more frustrating, because where do I go? I'm getting jostled by meat men. Everyone's groaning in my ears. Lady is being mad and unreasonable, and is not wanting to solve her issues in a healthy way. And I'm not about that. So can't go up there. Elevator. There we go. Okay. Okay. Justice by Meatman is the new single from 6 Foot Smell Limit. Just try. Jostled by Meatmen. It's gonna be great, y'all. And we're gonna get got. We're gonna get out here and we're gonna get got anyway. I can't see shit. Hug the left-hand wall! Hug that left-hand wall! I'm gonna go towards you because I don't know where else I'm supposed to go. But I also feel like this is a bad idea. I think I should try to stay away from you. We apologize for the inconvenience. Do you? Got the achievement Dreadful Night! We finished the layer, y'all. Leg up. We asked him to give us bondings. Search for Joseph Price. I have forgotten how to pee. Hold on. My terror has made it so I don't have to pee. So let's take a second. Storage room is now unlocked. You can find some interesting items in there. I don't need to pee anymore. No, I do, but we're very close to finishing anyway. I don't think there's anything new in here to see. Oh, Ghost Kisser's there. Okay, that one took me an embarrassing long time because I didn't know. Oh! Gotta turn the brightness up. Smart. Intelligent. I'm glad I'm not the only one who thought that that was an issue. Okay, so I wish I could pin things to the board again that I find in the regular world, but I can't. A little frustrating. But we'll do... I know I'll just find it again when we start back up, but you know what? We got this. Joseph. Price. would think, but I could, like, we found this note, and we found this card, and I could pin those to the board. But I wasn't able to pin the frequencies, and I wasn't able to pin this. So I'm a little confused as to what we can and cannot pin, I guess. But that's okay. But yeah, we will end it here, because I do have to pee, and it's also after 6 o'clock, which is usually when we end. Hopefully we'll be able to get through another layer tomorrow. I feel like we've been making, like, pretty decent progress of, like, doing a layer every sit down. I am curious as to how many layers there are. Is there... They're all hidden. Most of the achievements are hidden, so I cannot see how many chapters there are, but that's okay. I don't imagine there's too much longer to this, right? But that's fine. I am still enjoying it. I like it. It's fun. We've got to meet a lot of neat people through it. Let's go ahead and set up a raid. And, go say hi to some friends. Does anyone have any suggestions, recommendations, or thoughts on who we should go raid? Also, if you're gonna raid with us, want to go say hi to a new friend, there are raid messages. First one is for anyone. It's got global emotes in it. Second one has our channel emotes on it. It's pretty alright. I've got 4 folks online right now. No one you're friends with is streaming? Alright. Well, I've got Cauliflumps doing some XCOM 2. ATM0 doing some Back for Blood. And Transby and Sarah doing some The Witness. We could go hang out with Cauliflumps. It's been a while since we've seen them. It's been a while since I think we've seen any of these folks. Otherwise, we could see if anybody else is streaming mirror layers. Which no one else is. It is just me. Just me streaming. Okay. Never mind. That's off the table. Let's go hang out with Cauliflumps. They're wonderful and delightful. And XCOM is chiller. More chill than what we got going on here. So yeah, thank you everyone for being here, hanging out, doing the fun friend thing. We'll be back tomorrow with more mirror layers, and then we'll get back to Graveyard Keeper and whatever other game, Darkwood. That's what we're doing right now. But yeah, go send the love over to our friend Cauliflumps. I love you guys. Take care of your dang selves. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.